Tips and tricks will not keep you sober, but this will. There is a lot of tips and tricks out there about stopping drinking. And they can be helpful in the short term, like they can get you sober, but they will not keep you sober. And I'm going to explain why that is in this video. I'm just going to say right off the bat, there's just no quick fix, right? There's no like pill you can pop and everything's resolved, because alcohol is a symptom of the problem. The real problem is our thinking and our feelings. And we're using alcohol to deal with those thoughts and feelings. So if you imagine an iceberg, right, the bit that you can see out of the water is the drinking. But we know with icebergs, it's the bit that's underneath the water that you can't see that is like the main part of the iceberg. It's the same with an alcohol problem. So that's why just stopping drinking is not enough. And sobriety is 10% not drinking alcohol and 90% emotional sobriety. To stay sober long term, you need a practice to maintain your mental and emotional health for the rest of your life. And that is what I teach. I teach people how to get that practice. And if you want to start with that, check the links below, because there'll be some links that will help you. And I want to just kind of this kind of quick fix, because for a lot of us, alcohol is our drug of choice, right? And by drug of choice, what I mean is it's just like the go-to, right? It's the thing I preferred. I smoke cigarettes. I also had an abusive relationship with food, and I used other drugs as well. But alcohol was always my number one. Alcohol and cigarettes, I want to say. But that was my preferred method of numbing and running away from any feelings that I didn't like. The thing is, if we just stop drinking, our brain will just look around for other things to use to numb and run from our feelings. I definitely, before I even started smoking or drinking, I used food and sugar. Our brain is like an internet search engine, just looking for dopamine hits. And if we're getting our dopamine hits from substances or unhealthy behaviors, it's unfulfilling. And so our brain just needs more and more and more. That's why stopping drinking isn't enough, and we need more than tips and tricks. And what I mean by tips and tricks, and I want to tell you, in early sobriety, if you're first getting sober, this stuff will help you. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying don't do it. It will help you. I mean, a classic one is, this is a tip or a trick or whatever, is to think the drink through, right? If you are tempted to drink, maybe you're, 15 days sober, and then the weekend's coming up and you're just like, oh, you're thinking about alcohol and oh, you're kind of fantasizing about it and romanticizing it. And you're kind of going, no, right. I'm not going to drink. Ooh, right. Think the drink through. So you have the drink. What happens? Well, I have one drink. I then have 3 or 4. I finish the bottle. And then this happens. I don't sleep well. I will wake up at 3 a.m. with a dry mouth, and I might be sick, and I won't get back to sleep. And then I'll feel absolutely awful the next day. I'll be full of shame and regret. I probably won't meet my obligations. I usually end up canceling things, and then I let people down, and then I have to go to bed early that night because I'm just so and it takes me about 2 or 3 days to feel normal, right? That's thinking the drink through, because our thinking gets very stuck on like the romanticization of alcohol. Oh, just one drink, be nice, like everyone else is doing it. So that is a really good tip and trick, right? Use that if you're in early sobriety. It doesn't work long term. We need more than that. We just need more than that kind of stuff. There's other tips and tricks, like just, stay away from alcohol, like say no to invitations, get a hobby, replace it with something else, like a distraction. And, if you would, let's say you drink at home every night on your own, like, I don't know, start knitting or something, right? Again, helpful in the short term, but that stuff is not going to solve the stuff that's underneath the iceberg. It's just not going to resolve that. That is the work of emotional sobriety. So when we stop drinking, we have to get emotionally sober, and we have to, it's not, emotional sobriety is not something you just go and do and it's done, right? It's something that continues for the rest of your life. And I want to explain how this works. It's just like exercise. If you want to stay physically fit and healthy for the rest of your life, you need to exercise for the rest of your life. If you could 10 years ago run a 10K, or you did an Ironman or a half marathon or whatever, right? Great. But if you haven't done anything since then, that's not going to have any impact on your health today, your physical health today, right? What impacts your physical health today is what you do today. So maybe you don't run half marathons anymore. Maybe you go for a long walk with the dog, or maybe you do yoga or Peloton or whatever, right? What matters is what you do today. It's the same with your mental and emotional health. And this is what I see people do. A big mistake I see people make is alcohol gets them to a really, really bad, uncomfortable place. It makes them feel quite desperate. And then they work really, 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 really hard in getting out of that place. And they do all the things. And they get out of that place and they feel much better. Oh, I feel much better. And then they stop doing everything that worked. What would happen if you did that with exercise? Right? If you did that with physical exercise for a few months and began to feel fit and flexible and all those kind of things, and then you just stopped, you cannot keep it. You cannot keep that fitness. It's the same with emotional and mental health fitness. It's exactly the same. It's about what you do today. Like this is the hill that I will die on, right? So that's why we have to do the work of emotional sobriety. If you want to start doing that, make sure you check below. I want to give you an example of this. I wrote about this in my first book, Why You Drink and How to Stop, which came out like 15 years ago. You can find it on Amazon. When the bariatric surgery first came out, and I think that was in the 90s, and I've got all of the stats in my book. That's why I'm referring to it, because I write about it there. When people were like several £100s, right, and they were morbidly obese and it was life-threatening, what the surgery did was it went in and it made their stomach so small that it was impossible for them to binge eat and overeat. That was their drug of choice. Their drug of choice. And again, we now know that a lot of this is related to trauma. Their drug of choice was like binge eat, overeat, and because it creates a dopamine effect and it just like numbs us out, right? So what they did is they took away their ability to do that. What happened? Well, you'll never guess. What they discovered very quickly is and again, the figure's in my book, but it was well over 80% of these patients then became alcoholics and addicts, because all that had happened is their drug of choice had been taken away. So they could no longer do that. So their brain went, what else can we do to take away these feelings? So they very quickly realized that they couldn't just do the surgery. They had to have a therapeutic program as well, and they had to see a therapist and all of that kind of stuff. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same with alcohol. It's not enough to just stop drinking and do a few tips and tricks. What we want to do is some personal development, the development of oneself. Because the reason we want to do it, we start by wanting to do it because we don't want to drink anymore the way we've been drinking and have the consequences, but we continue because of the rewards that never end of the personal development. That's why we keep doing it. So here's the things that you must learn. I want to break it down. And again, links below if you want to start doing this. These are we have to change our behavior. To change our behavior, we have to change some of the programming that's in our subconscious mind. We have to shift our perception. All sobriety is a shift in perception. We have to show up in the world differently. We want to show up differently so that we don't get to this inevitable place where we end up drinking. We have to stop people pleasing. We have to have really good boundaries. We have to balance our needs according to our circumstances. We have to manage our fear better. We need to change the limiting beliefs that we have that are limiting us for to be able to deal with resentments and activating events. Those things are what we have to learn to be emotionally sober. And they're really life skills. That's all they are. They're just life skills that everybody would benefit from. And once you know how to use these life skills, they change everything. They cause this internal shift and you just feel different and you don't want to drink when you feel like that. And that is the work. That's why tips and tricks, it's just not enough. Look for something that teaches you how to do that, because you will go into this wanting to learn how to do this because you don't want to go back to this horrible place that you've been in with alcohol, but you will continue because of how it makes your life change. So I've been doing this for 25 years. I still do this work. And I don't think about alcohol. I don't do it to stay sober. I don't think about that. I just live my life. Yes, you can get to a point where you just live your life. I don't think about staying away from alcohol. I don't think about alcohol. I just live my life. But I continue to do the work of emotional sobriety because it keeps rewarding me. And I'm all about the good stuff. I just want the good stuff. Where's the good stuff? How do I get the good stuff? Here. That's how you get the good stuff. Check the links below.